Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and welcome to another episode of Virus Analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, the virus that we're looking at today, in effect, is a pretty nasty one. And this one is far more destructive, and frankly, it's in the ransomware category. One thing that you're going to realize a lot quickly is that viruses typically can be pretty ransomware heavy, and that's just usually due to the fact that there is a financial payoff to it. Wherever there is financial payoff, that's where a lot of effects and efforts are going to go into. But this one sets itself a little bit differently. When we looked at WannaCry, this virus was really spreading its infections just 7 to 8 weeks after that virus had hit. Now this virus first showcased around 2016, and the one that we're talking about today is Petya. Now this virus isn't just called Petya. Treat it like an umbrella of viruses. This is a spectrum of one giant virus in particular, ladies and gentlemen. The virus is a ransomware, but it is a ransomware that is very, very destructive, from just slightly very destructive to, oh my god, you are never getting your data back destructive, no matter what you do. So Petya, where it has other names such as GoldenEye or not Petya, GoldenEye being the fact that Petya was actually one of the satellites in the movie James Bond GoldenEye, where they had the GoldenEye machines that would launch that nuke that would cause the EMP in the world. Remember that shit? Yeah, this is where Petya got its name from. This one, I would argue, can be slightly more destructive when you factor in the cyber attacks that it can cause. Now, whereas when we looked at WannaCry, which attacked a lot of organizations again and did cause a lot of damages, billions of dollars even, as far as I can recall from that video, this one caused roughly, I wouldn't say $4 billion worth of damages, but it did cause in the hundreds of millions. And the payloads that we're going to look at is sort of like a modern day version of CIH. Kind of, not really, but we'll cover it as time goes on. Now, Petya was a virus that showcased first in 2016, and around 2016, people started to get code and whiffs of this virus throughout email attacks. Yes, email attacks are still pretty common in this day and age. Now, Petya hid its payloads within multiple things: executable files, photos, PDF documents, the like. This virus got around. Its spread mechanism was so stealthy and crafty that, to this day, people are still digging around, analyzing it, and figuring out, just all the nuances so they can apply the same research to many other viruses that could carry the same umbrella. The way that this virus spread was, in my opinion, more lucrative than what you could say with WannaCry. This virus used many techniques to spread. One very common one was basically spreading through local area networks. For those of you who don't know what a local area network is, a local area network, picture it like the fact that you have 4 computers in your house, for example, all connected to the same router. Congratulations, you're all part of a giant LAN. Basically, if one computer gets infected, the virus can then look at the other computers in the local area network and infect. Now, you don't really have to worry too much because most antiviruses, in fact, most operating systems today, modern ones built in, have many mechanisms to prevent this kind of stuff at the start. But just letting you know, these are many ways these things can spread. So the thing that makes Petya a little more interesting is it's a virus that does corrupt your master boot record. It is a virus that is MBR corrupting. For those of you who don't know what this is, I'm going to give you a little layman tangent on what you can expect with MBR. When you're loading up your computer, the master boot record, MBR as it's called, is a special partition, or sector, not partition, but a sector on your drive, typically the first one, that contains the instruction set that relays to your bootloader how to exactly load up the operating systems in particular. MBR you could attribute more towards Microsoft Windows in this case, since this is a Microsoft Windows-based virus. Now, slowly things are getting better and things are changing. The days of BIOSes are changing to UEFI, which is Unified Extensible Firmware Interface, and most partition schemes, which used to use the older MBR methodology, are now changing to GPT partitioning. Not only does this allow for higher hard drive spaces, more partitions, but it also adds an extra layer of security. Now, instead of an MBR, a special section of your drive hosts an EFI file that basically relays all commands. So regardless, Petya was a virus that attacked your MBR. Now, from what I just said, from the tangent I went on, I hope a lot of you have made the logical conclusion that this virus prevents your computer from booting the fuck up. Now, it's actually really, really bad, because once it causes an MBR corruption, Petya will initiate a restart call. Basically, it will attempt a restart on your computer. Your computer will shut down Windows. Your computer will restart, it'll go through all of its posting, and once it gets to the MBR phase, where it relays for those instructions, Because you have a corrupted MBR, like you had with the, well, not with the Pokey virus, but relatively the same, you're not able to boot into your system unless you, of course, rebuild your MBR partition. But that isn't going to save anything.
What makes this especially dangerous is the fact that it doesn't really corrupt the files on your hard drive, but rather your master file table or your partition schemes, basically making whatever partitions you made and the files you made, or just the scheme in general, very unreadable.
Instead, you get treated to an amazing ransom note in DOS detailing you to send about $300 worth of Bitcoin out to an address. Now, us running around on our investigation stuff for these kind of ransomware viruses isn't really that impressive. All we did was we got a Windows 7 OS running, Windows 10 you can if you want, but we got Windows 7 running, we got a Windows operating system basically up and running in KVM. The reason why I picked KVM like I picked last week for the PUBG virus is it's very malware hidden. Basically, if you remember from the Sonic Gather Battle video, the program wouldn't launch in the VM, right? So with KVM, while it's not impossible, you can run many malwares without them detecting the fact that you're running in a virtual machine. See, VirtualBox, which is a very popular virtualization software, and software such as VMware, are basic virtualization softwares that are so well known that they're almost kind of counterintuitive to bring for malware analysis. Not that they're bad, it's just they carry a lot of strings and a lot of registry values, which actually ends up making it pretty easy to sort of counteract if you're developing malware and you just want to check if you're running in a VM. So regardless, we used KVM, we loaded a Windows machine, fired up the Petra ransomware locally on a computer, and voila, you get a ransom note, ladies and gentlemen. And the ransom note is pretty damn cutesy. It basically will read upon stating that your important files are encrypted. If you see this text, then your files are no longer accessible because they have been encrypted. Perhaps you are busy looking for a way to recover your files, but don't waste your time. Nobody can recover your files without our decryption service. We guarantee that you can recover all your files safely and easily. All you need to do is submit the payment and purchase the decryption key. And of course, this is where they ask you to pay to a certain Bitcoin address, and voila, and so forth. And once you have basically paid them, you're going to get a decryption key, and you can enter the key, and voila, you're free from the world. Now, how effective is this? How much did it go to? In fact, nowadays, it's not really something you can look into. Most of these ransomwares, once they've passed, they've passed. All they can really do is infect your system now. So regardless, Petya had infected the system, and it was completely unusable and unable to obtain files from. So the issues that WannaCry had made in our analysis was that there was still a slight chance, very slight chance, that you were able to pull out a key that you could use against the malware once it was launched. Of course, this barred the fact that you were not doing anything to your computer, the memory was at a standstill, and you didn't restart the system. The fact that this restarts a computer after a payload has been launched effectively guarantees your encryption of the keys and you unable to decrypt any key out of it. So Petya was pretty damn violent when it comes to it. Now, there were some variants of Petya. Remember in the beginning I said that this was, in fact, a pretty, it was an umbrella of viruses. There were many versions of Petya, such as NotPetya or, whatever variant, that just straight up blocked access to your files and ran a wiper malware, which would essentially write zeros or screw out your hard drive. Basically, you couldn't recover your files even if you wanted to. It just straight deleted everything. It ransomed your files and it killed your files before you could even make a payment, or didn't even give you an option for a payment to begin with. It just straight got rid of all your files to begin with. Now, this one was pretty damn terrible because it targeted very, very high-level institutions. We're talking government institutions. We're talking high-level financial institutions, specifically targeting the Ukraine. But this virus definitely made its mark in the UK. It made its mark in the United States, the European nations, and Asia. In fact, Danish giant Maersk, which handles a lot of business and logistics work across the world, actually lost about $200 to $300 million worth of it. A U.S. pharmaceutical organization lost a bunch of money to it as well. So there was a lot of money that was lost and a lot of core institutions that were hurt from this virus in particular. Now, what's interesting to notice with Petya is that it actually uses an NSA exploit that was previously leaked by hackers. This is one that I believe we've seen on the deep web too. In the deep web, we've seen actual NSA leaked exploits that the NSA has that were leaked by hackers that basically showed that the NSA had a lot of backroom access into modern-day computers as well. This NSA exploit in particular was called Eternal Blue, which was directly the thing that they were using in the Petya ransomware attack. This one basically exploits a Microsoft vulnerability in the SMB protocol, which is server message block, allowing these hackers to run arbitrary code on the actual OS. Now, they used an NSA exploit that was stockpiled with the NSA. Microsoft even blamed them for it in particular. They stockpiled this vulnerability that were leaked by hackers, and these hackers then, using these leaks, created a virus that was pretty destructive, not Petya, to launch a virus attack against many core institutions. Again, this didn't target any lower tier institution as far as I recall. This didn't target any lower Joe Schmo person. This targeted the big boys, and when it attacked the big boys, it did some big boy damage. Let me put it that way, ladies and gentlemen. Petya is a pretty terrible fucking malware. It is a very, very terrible cyber attack that occurred in 2017. And because of the 2017 cyber attack, because of this virus still being taken into account, because of many international organizations that work in this field to counteract malware, it's now on a state of, I guess you could say, red alert, or more analysis required, because as these viruses get more strong, and as a lot of these vulnerabilities are still yet to be used, and a lot of these vulnerabilities are still being created on a daily basis by firms such as the NSA, or likewise organizations, the more leaks occur, the more deadly things that are found in either mobile devices or desktop devices, and the more these things get leaked, the dangerous these viruses end up becoming. So again, if you run a multi-billion-dollar company by any chance, make sure you're launching, make sure your IT teams know exactly how to handle their protocol, make sure they know how to exactly handle launching of any type of file, and monitor your email networks, because the moment any firm gets attacked by Petya, it's kind of a death sentence. This virus made a fair ton of money because people, once grabbed by the balls, only have the option of paying a ransom. And hell, $300 ain't exactly that worse of a ransom if you've got pretty valuable files to begin with. Again, it comes down to not paying hackers or not paying people in the beginning, but if you get infected, I mean, it becomes this really hazy situation where what the fuck are you really going to do at the end of the day, right? But like CIH, this one is a pretty destructive virus, and you got to really watch out for what you're dealing with. So again, before I end this video, just the general tips. Be careful with what you download, be careful with what you execute, and most importantly of all, just use your common sense. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Petya umbrella attack viruses, an interesting one that I wanted to cover for a little bit after WannaCry, and I sort of wanted to do it in an escalatory fashion because you get viruses that start off doing the really harmless stuff. Well, not really harmless, but harmless in comparison, all the way up to the really dangerous, edgy ones like this. So that being said, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like if you dislike it, I am out.